Good morning. Welcome to the Vapour Cloud Robotics webinar. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome, everybody. If you have any questions today, please submit them in the questions box as the webinar unfolds, and we'll answer them at the end. We are joined today by Tim Mercer, CEO of Vapour Cloud, and Tom Davies, CEO of Robiquity, to discuss robotic process automation, also known as RPA, and what it can do for your business. Hi, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Tom, would you like to start by telling us exactly what RPA is and a bit more about your business?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Morning, everyone. Morning, Tim. Yeah, RPA, Robotic Process Automation, really is something you may have heard of, may not have heard of. It's often mistaken or focuses on the robotic nature of it. What we're not talking about is physical robots with arms and mechanical bits and bobs that do things for you. What we're actually talking about is our software robots. So effectively, a human equivalent built-in software that is built to take on certain tasks within businesses that are rules-based, repeatable, mundane, and typically take up lots of time and effort in a business. So as you can see there, the robotic nature is something that mimics human actions. The processes that it can be trained to follow a sequence of steps to a meaningful activity, which we know is a process. And the automated aspect of it is that it can operate without human intervention or human supervision. So RPA is a technology that is really growing rapidly as part of every business's way of operating. It's a core part of the future business operating model.
Perfect.
And what is it that we do? So I work for a company called Robiquity. We're based in Manchester, a UK business, and we've recently expanded into the States and the Middle East, and that's reflective of how popular RPA and automation generally are becoming as a choice for businesses. We're a services business, so we help clients to implement RPA. We help clients to choose the right technologies, to identify processes within their business that are suitable for automation. We help them then deliver it quickly so that you receive the benefits of it as quickly as possible. And RPA is an interesting one because it's not like your traditional technology implementations, big systems implementations, where it's 18, 24 months and another 3 years before you get return on investment. A typical automation process can be delivered in something like 4 to 6 weeks, and then deployed, and it starts working from that point. So it starts to wipe its own face, very, very quickly indeed. And beyond that first 6-12 months, people start seeing a 3-to-1 return on investment. So that's the core of why this is becoming so popular. You can see there some of the clients that we're working with. We work across every sector, from financial services to retail to car dealerships to utilities to pet stores, even eBay and the co-op. So we're working across every sector because every sector is interested in RPA. RPA isn't aligned specifically to any business function. It's something that any business can take on and use.
That's great, Tom. Thank you. I know Tim has a lot of questions, so Tim, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Tom. Just for everyone on the webinar, the questions are underneath, and we'll probably flip between them all, really, Tom, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
We've got 6 or 7 questions in 40 minutes, so between me and you, we better get a wiggle on.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right.
the way we speak, mate, I think we better get a wiggle on. So listen, one of the biggest things that you hear out about bots, chatbots, whatever that might be, is they're going to take over humans. They're going to take our jobs. Yeah, we hear it all the time, don't we? You can't bring them in. just give me an overview of that, because I know that we know that that's not true. So give me an understanding of, to put people's minds at rest, what you think about that.
Yeah, so I think if you think about actually a step back a step to, if you think about previous industrial revolutions in this country, they were due to advances in technology which increased productivity in certain industries, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. So when they introduced looms to mills, for example, in the Northwest and into Yorkshire, what they did was they changed people's jobs. Yes, they took the jobs of the people who were spinning in their front rooms, but they created huge new swathes of jobs and skills to drive the industrial revolution. And it's similar to what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is technology that is being brought in to work alongside humans, so that humans' career paths and the future skills agenda in every business is more focused on what people are good at and can build careers and skills around, versus some of the stuff we're asking people to do now. So the robots are coming is not back to that point of, it's not about it's going to take everyone's jobs. What it's going to do is release capacity to refocus on what people's skills should be. So if you think about, to give a relevant example, if you think about people who work in a contact center, I think it's probably fair to say that in the past 10, 15 years, contact center agents have perhaps been seen as quite a fairly low skilled job. It's, large organizations filling up contact centers to deal with lots of different customer inquiries. With the advent of RPA, what that's doing is it's taking away some of the mundane tasks that you might ask some of those people to do in a contact center, and it's creating a more focused and professional role out of the contact center agent. So a contact center agent then becomes a customer services professional.
Yeah, if I just to go into that a little bit,
yeah,
we've done something similar with one of our clients. They actually take all the calls for COVID, for the business element of COVID.
Right.
And lots of the people want to know, how do I get a civils loan? How do I get a bounce back loan? Am I relevant for this payment, that payment? Well, that's just really, if you go to that contact center agent, they just push you to a government website. That's basically what they do. And so what we've built with some robotics in there and some NLP is to understand that natural language processing, to understand what are you ringing for and what do you want. And we can miss out that agent, as you say in there, mundane tasks, simple processes, miss that person out and let that person concentrate on the detail, on the more complex services around it. And it's actually, it speeds up the process, speeds up the customers. Everyone gets a better return. People are much more comfortable with it. And it speeds up that people aren't sat in those queues waiting like they were before.
And that's the thing. It speeds it up and it increases the quality of the interaction, because human beings. So back to that skills agenda, we want people to do what people do best. We want people to focus on their skills in empathy, in understanding, in sensitivity, all the things that, when they add together, create quality of service. What we don't want those people to do is have to say, sorry, Tim, I'm going to put you on hold because I need to go and get all your information from the account system, and I need to go and compare your tariff to 4 other deals, and I need to go and ask my boss whether we can do this, and I need to go and check your call history, because those are robotic tasks that a robot can do instantly in a millisecond, which then enriches the agent's ability to have a better conversation. So it's that balance between the two. What do we want people to do versus what do we think a software robot should be doing to make the person's job better?
Yeah, agreed on that. So that takes me to a really basic question for me, which I had to ask you about previously, which is, what's the difference between an RPA bot and a chatbot? What's the difference between the two? Because a lot of people think, well, are they the same? Are they slightly different? That's a chatbot. Explain that difference to me, please.
Well, first of all, they're on the same path. So An RPA bot, sometimes we talk about RPA in terms of arms and legs versus brain. So if you think about a chatbot needs some intelligence. It needs things like NLP, natural language processing, because it needs to understand what you're saying. So it needs to have some cognitive capabilities to be able to understand what you're saying and present the right options back. Otherwise, if it was a dumb bot, and we still get some quite dumb chatbots, which are more like a frequently asked questions type thing, and you get fed up because they fall over at anything. But a chatbot needs some intelligence. What RPA does is more of the arms and legs, and it's why it's a great starting point for automation. RPA, when I say arms and legs, because it grabs information from systems, it puts them in different places, it fills up spreadsheets, it performs small calculations, it executes basic rules, and it does these in very repetitive ways at volume. So it doesn't need to think, it follows the same process time and time again, but it can do it much faster, much more consistently, and without errors than a human can do. And it means that we're not asking humans to do those laborious things. So it's the less clever version of a chatbot or anything AI related, but it can do larger, more voluminous tasks at pace.
Yeah, so we talked about that before, about simple business processes, rules management, that sort of stuff around that. Yeah. And it lacks a little bit of flexibility and adaptability around it. Whereas chatbots, like you said, are a bit more intelligent around it. They need to have a bit more intelligence. They need to interact with you a little bit more, and therefore they're on a slightly different scale. Okay, good.
One thing we're actually starting to see, though, Tim, is the convergence of the two.
Okay.
So you start to see. So if you imagine holding a conversation with a chatbot, and let's say that as part of that conversation with a chatbot, you agreed some new terms as a customer with the business that you're talking with. The chatbot could then call an RPA bot to go and do its work for it in the same way as a human agent could. So a chatbot could trigger an RPA bot to go and update the CRM, update and process a sales order, update your spreadsheet or whatever it needs to do. So the two can work together.
Yeah, we've seen some of that actually recently with a client of ours. We didn't build it. Another friend of mine actually built it for a company called Trenchers Law, where they've automated their wayleave system, and they've done that. They've actually took out, in essence, that human interaction and put it into a bot environment, and it goes off and finds who owns the land register, who's a landlord, who's this, who's that, who's it, and pulls all that information together and brings it back. Whereas normally, with humans, as an example, we'd normally say, well, you've got 7 days to do that task. We take 7 days, don't we? We start it on the 7th day, don't we, normally? You know, everyone who's got, well, most of us do. I know there's lots of people who will go, oh, no, I get out of my queue straight away. But if you're like me, you probably wait till the 6th day and then start working on it. And that just slows that process up, doesn't it, for everybody? Whereas a bot just goes and gets it and brings it back. I thought that was really interesting. You talked earlier about you being popular and growing and being in other countries. I read an article yesterday from Forbes magazine, actually. PwC annual global CEO survey. I thought these stats were amazing. I don't know if you've seen them. 63% of global CEOs believe AI will have a larger impact than the internet.
Wow.
Which is pretty staggering, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you talked about that, how that fourth industrial revolution's coming, what's happening, that technical revolution's coming. I read that stat and I thought, wow, that's interesting.
And I can understand that, because it's the next genesis of the internet. If you think about the internet is the most amazing repository of information in the history of anything. What automation and AI are doing are using that information and making it actionable. So they're providing the so what. So at the moment, humans use the internet to take decisions and take action.
Yeah. Because
it's a huge source of data and information. At the point where AI can mine that information and make its own decisions to take actions, either on an individual's behalf or on a business behalf, then it becomes really powerful.
Yeah, I agree with that. It actually did state as well, similar to what you just said, it will create more jobs, without shadow of a doubt. By 2030, there'll be a 26% increase, which is $15.7 trillion in global GDP. Which is pretty frightening. You know, it was written this year, that survey, and you look at it and think, wow, if we're going to have a 26% increase in global GDP on that sort of information, AI and that growth, it's pretty staggering, really, as to where we're sat. We'd right at the basis and the bones of it at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, if growth it's an interesting one, because when RPA came into into the world and people started to use it, so the early adopters were the big retail banks in the city, because they were heavily manually and paper-based processing at the back end, and so they were the first adopters, and it was all about cutting cost. And it's carried that tag forward a little bit. So a lot of people you talk to about RPA, the first thing is, well, yeah, it's a much cheaper, much faster human equivalent, so therefore you're going to save per bot 70% of your human equivalent cost, and that's your business case. More like 7 or 8 times out of 10 in terms of the conversations we're having now, it's shifted from cost out to productivity. So the main levers are now productivity, service, and compliance. So customer service at the front end, for some of the reasons we talked about earlier, in terms of better customer interactions because bots supporting humans. Compliance, because you're cutting error rates significantly in some of your processes when you ask robots to do stuff instead of humans. It's just a fact. And then productivity. I mean, just an example, we've just been working with financial services business and equity release business, and they've using RPA across their loans approvals and underwriting processes. They've managed to put through 40% more business with the same cost base, simply by deploying 6 bots. So it's a massive productivity opportunity.
We noticed that when we did it for the contact center for COVID, that lots of their calls were coming after 6 o'clock at night, but some of them were coming at midnight, where people have been working or working late, whatever it might be, but there was no one there to answer those calls. The call center had shut. And so they were missing that, people having to ring back. It was causing problems. It's obviously a government-backed contract, and the government didn't want that to happen. They said it needs to be 24/7. You need to be answering these calls 24/7. And so that was a process of how we put it in, and it works. There's no two ways about it. It really does. You said to me the other day when we were chatting around, and I like the line. There's 2 lines that you came up with, which I'll repeat back to you. Just give us a little bit of an overview on that. RPA RPA enables. It's not the answer. Okay. And the second one, which I really like, it's the gateway drug to AI. Just to explain that a little bit more, those two quotes.
Yeah, so if you think about RPA as an enabler, it's the enabler of everything we've just been talking about. So it's not a system in the same way as you would implement a new finance system, or you'd implement a new supply chain system, or a new contact center platform. It's the enabler in terms of it fills the gaps. It's the digital glue that allows all those systems to work better than they're working today. So it allows people to work better, and it allows your core business systems to work better. Because everyone's always chasing that nirvana of, have we got a perfect systems landscape supporting everything perfectly that our business does? Well, the fact is, your business never stands still. So the moment you think your business systems are perfectly aligned to what you do, it's probably already becoming legacy as you're speaking, because things change and things are changing faster than they ever have. So what RPA does, it enables you to continue operating in this period of continual change, because it keeps things working together. It allows the information to be updated, in real time. It allows customers to be spoken to with the right updated information. It allows your inventory position to be accurate. So it enables your business to work in a more efficient, productive way. on the second point around the gateway drug to AI. So a lot of businesses have dabbled with AI and they've said, okay, you know, let's invest a little bit and let's look at AI. Let's look at our data and what it tells us. Can we make better decisions using AI? Can we make better predictions using AI? Can we use intelligent chatbots, etc., etc.? But they tend to then fall on rocky ground because they tend to be little projects that do one little thing very well, but they don't scale. What RPA gives is the automation backbone that provides the real so what to AI. So if you use some AI, for example, to look at to predict when customers are going to drop out of your sales process, they're going to abandon their basket, for example.
Okay, yeah, interesting.
Or they're going to start configuring. A new car, or they're going to put some trainers in a basket or whatever. AI will very accurately tell them that for example, people in the age range X to Y of gender X and at this time of day are 73.2% more likely to abandon their basket than people in this one. I think, oh, that's brilliant. That's insight. AI gives fantastic insight. But so what? You're still going to do something. You're still going to do something.
It's great having the data, isn't it? It's great having it, but what are you going to do with it? Yeah, you've got to do something with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've given me this amazing insight, but guess what? You're still completely reliant on the human to take the appropriate action. Now, what RPA does is enable you to consistently take the best action as a result of that insight. So you can program it to say, right, okay, when we predict that person is going to drop out of that sales process at that point, let's automate the fact that you're going to send them a message or make them another offer or do something around your company's policy to in any way disrupt that journey that's going to lead process.
To a They're putting a call to action to them of some kind to say
just something. So you get automation off the back of AI, but as the gateway drug to AI, by putting automation in as that backbone, it gives you the fundamental infrastructure that allows you to make AI actionable. Is the real message.
Okay, cool. I've got 3 more bits that I want to go over. Case studies, okay?
Yeah.
Give us a couple of case studies that we can. I mean, we've gone through a couple there, but give us a couple of case studies that you can share with us that some of the people might sort of understand and you know the size and scope of those. Because sometimes I think people will look at it, I'd listen to it and go, I can't do that. We're not a massive company. You know, we're not 100 million company. You know, it's just too far in the realms for us. We just can't do that. It's impossible. And the other bit around that is from a case study. The second question leading on to that is, and how do we start? You know, it sounds brilliant, but shit, what do we do? How do we actually get there with it? And then obviously we could talk to us and we can talk to them. But those are the 2 things that I think people will look at and go, 1, I don't really know where to go with it to start. And secondly, the case studies around how they started and what that did for them. If you could share some of that, would be great.
Yeah. So I mentioned the one about the mortgage loans people. A few to bring things to life. So one we're working on at the moment is because people couldn't go on holiday in COVID and they can't again. Obviously, everyone's started to spend on themselves and their houses, haven't they? So
they have. Yeah, you're right. They have. Yeah.
Yeah, we're working with one of the more famous upholsterers, should we say, whose sale always ends on a Sunday.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah. So when they get a new sofa range and they have to set it up in their system, because it can have so many different variables, so many different configurations in terms of the material it's made with, whether it comes with a swiveling chair or what, there's literally sort of 600 different variations on their product setup per product, and people have to do it. So they have to set up their product in their core system every time they get something new or every time it changes. And that literally involves receiving a spreadsheet from the supplier and typing it, all those different variables into their core system. And of course, people make mistakes because not only do they have to set up the product, they have to set up the different prices and different promotions on it that apply to it. And in this particular case, they said, and this is true, it sounds ridiculous, but it's absolutely true. One of the mistakes that was made was a missing zero on the price. So instead of being 1,500 quid, it was 150 quid. And by the time it had gone live, one of these price comparison sites had got a hold of it and it had gone viral. So in the time it took for them to spot it, which was sort of 3 or 4 hours, I think they'd sold 150 units of it already, which they then had to honour. So it cost them a significant amount of money. And not only that in terms of the mistake, but it costs them a significant amount of money because they're asking people to do this, and it takes them hours upon hours upon hours. We've reduced that to 30 seconds from sort of 6 or 7 hours to implement that.
30 seconds.
So the robot does it in 30 seconds. Okay. With a zero error rate. So there's one example. And another example, we're working with a large law firm over in Liverpool. Well, you know, they're a big national law firm, and believe it or not, these highly paid solicitors and lawyers spend about 9 or 10 hours of their working day in front of their email account dealing with the emails they receive about the 10 or 20 cases that they may be working on at any one time. And all they're doing during that day is reading that email and filtering it to their case management system and say, right, okay, that one's about Mrs. Smith's divorce. That goes in my divorce file. This one's about Kramer versus Kramer, whatever it might be. And then they take the work home and work on the case in the evening. So, and that is fee earners' time. And this is happening across the legal industry, right? From small solicitors to your large scale law firms. So what the robot is doing is literally reading emails that come in. It's using natural language processing to spot keywords that allow it to understand where those emails should go. So that's what we call classification. And then it's routing those emails to the appropriate, it learns and it routes the emails to the appropriate wallets. If it gets an email it doesn't understand, or it hasn't spotted before, it sends it to the lawyer and says, I don't know what this one is. Can you allocate a wallet to it? And on the basis of what the lawyer does, it relearns again. So it won't ask next time. So it gets better and better all the time. Now that saved that particular law firm £750,000 quid's worth of fee earners' time in a year. So it's big numbers based on little mundane tasks. We work with a car dealership who do literally things like vehicle health check warnings, when outstanding warnings for service, when they flagged looking for it, I think it extracts the chassis number from spreadsheets, cross-checks it against customers, cross-checks it against dates, sends out alerts, schedules people in for MOTs, prompts them in that way, that sort of thing. So it can do, apologies, tons of things you can do. You can make sure your prices are updated on your website. You can do checks and balances against orders and stock and inventory. There's all sorts of things that go on in every business behind the scenes in terms of, is my information up to date? Is that same information available in the right systems? Are my customers getting the right information, et cetera, et cetera? Things that we often ask people to do. We ask people to take information out of systems into spreadsheets, to perform calculations or checks, put them back up into other systems, and they're doing it continually. So that is the hotbed of where this stuff works.
Yeah, no, I get that. there's a couple of names on this spreadsheet in front of us that people might know, and especially one of them that if you know about the Blue Prism, as it were, being one of, I think it might be the first UK unicorn, or one of them anyway. Based out of Manchester, I believe, as well. You're a consultant for Blue Prism and for UIPath as well, aren't you? Around that. Can you just explain what that is, what those two firms do, and what you do to cross-pollinate and help with regards to that? Because people know those names. It's important.
Yeah, so those two are the lead. Well, there's three globally. The one that isn't on there is Automation Anywhere, but they tend to be focused on the United States. But in this country, the two major players, and in Europe, are Blue Prism and UiPath. Blue Prism was the first to market. As you say, it's a northwest-based business. What both of them are the software products on which you build your RPA processes. So when you open up either of those two platforms, it looks like Visio. So if this is the beauty of it as a tool, if you can literally have a conversation with someone, and they might say, okay, we've got this pain in the backside process where we receive a new price list from one of our suppliers, and we have to check it against our current, and then where there are updates, we have to update one of our systems. Okay, so as that was described to me, you can literally, within those two platforms, build what looks like a business process flow, like Visio.
Yeah.
It generates code in the background for you, so you don't need to be a techie to use it. It literally is a tool built for business analysts and business people to understand, because you need to be able to look at it and recognize your process in it. And then it deploys on top of your existing systems. So it's non-invasive. It literally it becomes a new layer of automation in your business on top of your existing systems that operates in the same way as a human being would operate those systems. So it operates at the screen level. So when it inputs data, when Blue Prism or UiPath inputs data to one of your systems, it doesn't do it at the back end behind the scenes like an API or integration. It does it at the front end. It opens up the screens in the same way as we would.
Yeah.
So what you create in each of those systems is what we call digital workers. So every time you create that process, you assign it to a digital worker, which is effectively your software robot. And that software robot needs, you think about it in human terms, it needs the same privileges as you would give a member of your staff. So if it needs to access the HR system, it needs an HR logon, it needs an account, it needs a username and a password. And then you let it go, etc., etc. And then over time, in the same way as you give human skills, you give your digital worker new skills. So if it needs NLP, you train it with NLP. If it needs to work with your CRM system, you give it access to the CRM system. So you manage your digital workforce in the same way as you manage your human workforce.
Yeah.
And that's the way those two operate.
Interesting. All right. Last question before we take some questions and see what's out there if there are any. I said it earlier. How do we start? Because it feels this big sometimes, you know. And I think a lot of the times what we try and do in our industry is quite similar sometimes. Is focus it down, you know, concentrate on the thing. So how would we start? You know, we'd engage with us as a business. You know, you come to me, come to you, and say, but how would we start and how would we do that as a business? I think we spoke about this earlier. We'd start small, I believe.
You start small to prove the case. First of all, I would challenge anyone who says they haven't got opportunities for this type of automation within their business. No, the nirvana doesn't exist. No one exists in a perfect world. Everyone has manual, repetitive, spreadsheet type stuff that they do, and moan about the water cooler or on Zoom meetings these days.
Mate, honestly, I'm just thinking there, the amount of updates we get. Let's take an example, a BT bill, right?
Yeah.
As an example, we take it at a wholesale level, and then we pass that on to our clients. But it changes sometimes. Yeah, certain things change, certain rates change, China rate changes, America might change tomorrow, who knows? You know, the rate might change tomorrow, might change today. But something might change, and we've got to manually implement that. So I'm just sat there thinking about processes, what we would do, and I'm thinking about how we could implement it in our business straight away.
And what I would, the only caveat I would say is it works best at scale. So RPA is an economies of scale play. If you only have one or two things, I have to be honest, there are different ways to skin a cat. There's a Microsoft Power Automate product that can do one or two things. But what Blue Prism and UiPath work best at is when a business has said, right, the future of our business is going to be human skills and digital workers, and therefore we're likely in the future to have 15, 20, 30 more robots. If you only can have 2 or 3, then the software licensing on these two can be challenging, even though it's nothing like your big systems costs, but it all works at scale.
Yeah. Okay.
So in terms of where to start, you look for the low-hanging fruit. You typically start with a proof of concept or a pilot process, and honestly, you can get one up and running and in production in anything from 4 or 5 weeks to 10 to 12 weeks, depending on the complexity, and you can see it running. So it is that fast. And when I say see it running, you're already then seeing the benefits.
Yeah. Understandable. All right. Fantastic. We're nearly out of time. So is there anything that I've not asked that you want to get out and have a chat with the people on the webinar? We've recorded this so people can download it and they can listen to it again. So if there's something you want to get out, then let me know, and it'll be there for everyone to see and hear.
Yeah, no, I think we covered lots of stuff there, Tim. If there are any questions, it'd be great to field them. But if not, I think we've covered a lot there.
Fantastic. I do have a question, actually. Thank you guys so much. That's so interesting. I'm going to watch this back. There's a lot of information to take in there. One of the questions I have is, aside from financial services, which industries have seen the biggest adoption rate of this technology?
Yeah, great question. So what we're seeing is the insurance. So financial services and insurance, I would say, were the leaders. What we're seeing coming up very quickly on the tracks are retail and manufacturing, but particularly retail. We're 90% of our conversations at the moment are with retailers, and that is because of the complexities in their business. If you think about most retailers at the moment, they're having to paddle very, very hard to keep up in terms of their changing product ranges, changing customer expectations. Everything's always a sale, everything's always a promotion. So the information around their business, the complexities of their products, their supply chains, trying to expect systems and the people who operate those systems to keep up with that is a massive challenge. So robotics is filling the gap. And in the contact center is a huge driver for RPA going forward with retailers, with utilities companies, anyone who needs to deal with and enhance their customer experience. That automation play into the contact center is massive.
Yeah, I bet if you looked at someone like Gymshark as an example in the Northwest, the scale that those guys have grown over the last 6 or 7 years, just done a deal valued at $1 billion right across the globe. The amount of automation that should be in that business, I don't know whether it is or not, but the scale at which it's grown, you could see that this product set working extensively throughout it. Orders going in, returns coming back.
Returns huge.
Stock. Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking there's someone like Boohoo or Miss 60 or whatever, something online. You're sending it out, it doesn't fit, you're sending it back. It's time and effort to get that back into the system. I could see something from an RPA piece working really well in that environment. Yeah,
it's that point you made. It's because everything is becoming more complex and faster. How confident are you that your information is up to date? Now most businesses still rely on humans to make those information updates. through the user interface with screens. Now, as we say, we're limited. We work 9 to 5, 5 days a week if you're lucky, and even luckier if you don't make mistakes. So that is a constraint on how these businesses can operate. If you introduce robotics, then it gives you another lever.
Yeah, I can see that in that industry. I know, the margins are thin as well, aren't they? So the margins are high. So anything that you can do to keep the costs down, to create a better environment, speed, it's next is the same. You buy it before 9 o'clock, it's delivered the next day, etc. So that's what we're all looking for, aren't we? We're looking for. I want to buy it whenever I want to buy it on a platform that I'm on, whether it be Insta, Facebook, whatever it might be. I want to go on that platform. I want to order it. I want you to update me on it. I don't want to ring you anymore, really. No. I want to use all my messaging tools that I've got, and only when I need to speak to someone should I speak to somebody, really. And that's what we're starting to see in our industry. There's much more automation coming around. I don't actually need to speak to someone. I do it all the time. I don't want to talk to someone. I just want the information. Can you give it me? Exactly. And if you can give it me quickly, I'm happy with that. I don't want to sit in the queue either. No. I don't want to sit in the queue for 20 minutes when we're all on hold. That was the challenge that we had with our client, and we answered those calls immediately now and pushed them through. We stop people queuing. Don't get me wrong; they want to speak to someone, but that automation piece has just freed up so much more people's time. They actually need less people in the contact center. Save money. Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. Emma, any more questions?
Let me just check 1 second. What role does culture play in accepting RPA into a business? Do you need a champion?
Wow, great question. Well, I'll deal with the second part of that. Absolutely, you need a champion. This can't be implemented as sort of rogue IT. The temptation's there to do it. We're seeing it because it's quite fast and simple, non-invasive to implement. People start to do it but it just goes nowhere. It doesn't scale. So you need a champion at the top who. So I'm going to check my phone because one of the companies we're working with at the moment, the CEO called this core to his employee value proposition. So there you go. If you think about where it's come from, being a pure cost out, to now a chief exec of a large business saying, culturally, this is about our future employee value proposition, because it means we can build career paths in the way we want to and leave the rest to the robotics. So it is absolutely a culture play.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. It needs sign off at that board level, doesn't it? And it needs agreement. It needs a champion throughout. I totally agree with that point. Definitely. Tom, it's been amazing. Thanks, mate. I've learnt loads. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. We'll catch up soon for a beer when we can, mate. I really appreciate that. And thanks for everyone for logging in and listening. I hope we've done you justice on RPA. And if you want to listen to it again, I want to grab it. I'm sure me and Tom, we can do another half an hour easy at some point.
Of course we can, yeah. Thanks everyone for joining, and thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it, mate. See you soon.